Welcome back, focused learners. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever looked at the chaotic state of the world, just the daily barrage of headlines, and thought, there has got to be some kind of hidden logic behind all this? Well, today we are exploring a seriously fascinating, highly deterministic framework from geopolitical analyst Professor Jiang. He literally maps out global conflicts like a giant game of chess. In his view, every nation has its own strict set of rules, strategies, and incentives. But, and this is key, this explainer isn't just about moving massive armies around on a map. We're going to see how this permanent state of competition on the global board inevitably pivots right back to you, directly impacting your daily digital life in what Jiang calls the AI state. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the global chessboard, then look at America's grand strategy, Russia's third Rome, Israel and Iran, and finally, wrap up with the rise of AI states. Oh, and if you want to stay ahead of the curve on all these global dynamics, take a second right now to subscribe to Conflict Explained. Section 1. The global chessboard. Let's take a look at this game of incentives. Section 2. America's grand strategy. Now, to really understand these major players, we first have to grasp Professor Jiang's core rules for the board. Basically, every nation-state operates with a king, which is its underlying political system. Then you have a queen, representing its ultimate grand strategy or end goal. It utilizes attack vectors, which are its unique weapons and geographic advantages. And finally, it has pawns, the assets or even allied nations it is willing to sacrifice to win the overall game.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the inherent tension between America's king and its queen. The king is democracy. It's vibrant, it's flexible, and it's incredibly creative. But it has a fatal vulnerability, deep internal polarization. The ultimate risk isn't necessarily an outside invasion. Actually, scratch that. It's more about domestic factions becoming so intensely divided that they paralyze the state from within. Conversely, America's queen, its grand strategy, is relentlessly aggressive. Drawing from actual defense strategies, Jiang identifies this as Fortress America. The goal is to maintain global imperial hegemony, secure the Western Hemisphere, and completely control strategic maritime choke points so the global economy stays forever dependent on the American system.
So how do they execute this? Well, the U.S. relies on three massive attack vectors. First up, unparalleled technological and aerial supremacy. They unequivocally own the skies. Second, the U.S. dollar. This is huge. It gives them the power to weaponize finance, easily freezing hostile nations out of the global banking network overnight. Third, global propaganda, leveraging far-reaching media to shape the international narrative. And the pawns? Allied nations in Europe and East Asia. In this grim theoretical game, these allies are strategically positioned to absorb the massive economic and physical costs of regional proxy wars to prop up the broader American empire.
Section 3. Russia's third Rome. Let's look at the Eurasian resistance.
Shifting gears to America's primary counterweight, Russia, their queen, their ultimate grand strategy, is rooted in something called the Third Rome strategy. According to Jiang's analysis, this is an eschatological, deeply religious worldview that positions Moscow as the destined successor to the Roman and Byzantine empires. The historic mission here is to unite the Orthodox Christian world and the broader Eurasian continent against what they perceive as the godless, individualistic materialism of the West. So on a very fundamental, spiritual level, this grand strategy completely rejects the US-led global order.
Looking at Russia's king, we have autocracy. It's a system that allows for highly decisive, decades-long planning, without the disruption of term limits, but it's incredibly fragile during succession crises when a leader weakens. To defend this king, Russia relies on raw, enduring attack vectors, a vast, freezing geography that literally swallows invading armies whole, the unifying social force of the Orthodox religion, and absolutely unmatched grinding land artillery. And in this specific chess game, Russia's pawns are its soldiers, historically conditioned over centuries to sustain massive casualties to advance that Third Rome vision.
Section 4. Israel and Iran. This brings us to the highly volatile Middle Eastern theater.
According to Professors Jiang, Israel's queen is the theoretical Greater Israel Project. Viewed through this specific geopolitical lens, their grand strategy goes far beyond just basic survival within current borders. It's about securing regional dominance from the Nile in Egypt all the way to the Euphrates in Iraq, driven by deep historical and biblical territorial claims. Naturally, this strategy puts them on a permanent, high-stakes collision course with almost every other established power in the region.
Let's break down Israel's arsenal. Their king is a very unique hybrid, a mixed democracy and theocracy. It's highly creative but risks deep, volatile internal divisions between its secular and ultra-religious populations. Their attack vectors are incredibly specialized and globally reaching. You've got Mossad, operating as arguably the world's premier intelligence agency, the global business diaspora, and the unwavering political backing of Christian Zionists in America. Their pawns? Interestingly, it's the underlying hardware of global IT infrastructure. Because Israel is deeply embedded in creating the world's top cybersecurity tech, they can leverage those globally integrated assets to protect their core security interests.
Directly across the board is Iran. Iran's king is a strict theocracy run by clerics. It produces incredibly zealous loyalty from true believers, for sure, but it constantly risks alienating a massive, younger, secular population who just want normal modern lives. Iran's queen is fiercely ambitious. They wanted to unite the entire Muslim world under their religious leadership, completely displace rivals like Saudi Arabia, and violently expel what they call the Great Satan, meaning U.S. imperial influence, from the Middle East entirely.
Now, Iran knows they can't fight conventionally superior high-tech armies head-on, so their attack vectors are totally decentralized. We're talking regional proxy networks like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, plus asymmetrical warfare using cheap, devastatingly effective drones to threaten global shipping lanes. But their biggest advantage is topography. Iran is basically a massive mountain fortress, allowing them to hide key military assets deep underground, forcing enemies into a brutal war of economic and political attrition. Their pawns in this game are the countless Shia militias spread across the region, willing to fight to the bitter end.
So the crucial point is, while these massive, unyielding geopolitical kings and queens are busy fighting over maritime choke points and historical empires, what happens to the everyday citizens caught on the board? Let's pivot from the macro-level geopolitics down to the micro-impact on our daily lives.
Section 5. The Rise of AI States. Welcome to the domestic stage. This brings us to Professor Jiang's most chilling insight. The unending pressure of global war and economic instability inevitably forces governments to look inward. To maintain control during times of permanent crisis, the unavoidable byproduct of this global chessboard is the rise of the domestic AI state. And this architecture doesn't happen overnight. It sneaks up on us, disguised as convenience. Step 1 is rolling out mandatory digital IDs just to access basic services. Step 2 seamlessly ties that ID to total financial and online monitoring. Step 3 unleashes artificial intelligence to categorize that ocean of data and perfectly predict your individual behavior. And finally, Step 4 is systemic control, where the system actively blocks or incentivizes your daily actions based on an algorithm.
As Jiang bluntly states, everything you do online is being recorded to figure out how to control you. It is a terrifying reality. We happily paid for the very invisible cages we are now sitting inside, all for the convenience of one-day shipping and endless video scrolling. Jiang points to advanced surveillance systems currently operating in China as the literal blueprint. You see, you aren't just being passively watched. Your data feeds a massive behavioral database designed to understand exactly what you want, how you think, and exactly what levers the system can pull to program your physical actions.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate weapon of the AI state: programmable digital currencies, or CBDCs. Unlike regular cash, programmable money can literally be turned off by a state algorithm in a split second. Imagine trying to buy fuel for your car or a plane ticket, but your digital wallet simply won't process the transaction because the system flags your recent online search history or your social associations. It's an invisible cage perfectly designed to seamlessly guide civilian behavior without a government ever having to fire a single physical bullet or arrest a single citizen.
We started this explainer looking at a vast map of global superpowers fighting for centuries-old hegemony, but the reality is, the ultimate battleground shrinks right down to the smartphone sitting in your pocket. As the world pushes further into this era of permanent conflict, governments are absolutely going to demand more and more control over their domestic populations, simply to survive the chessboard. So, we have to ask ourselves, is the seamless, frictionless convenience of our modern digital age really worth the ultimate cost of living inside an AI state? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always question your own position on the board.